I like your outfit today.
Thanks. It's this shirt plus this shirt over top. I know, crazy,
Whoa
innovative,
there. Never been done before.
never been done before, ever. Name another person who's worn this shirt with this shirt on top of it. You can't.
I don't know them. Why are you asking me these hard questions?
Are you ready to talk about the movie of all
I'm
time?
literally so ready to talk about it. Let's do this.
Yay! Welcome to Women in STEM. We're talking about Buzz Luhrmann's Romeo plus Juliet, movie of all time. Let's
Literally.
go!
Oh,
I'll tell
sorry.
you something that I was thinking about in the
I
shower today,
know.
which is
Okay.
that it's kind of swag that Romeo and Juliet, despite being an unhappy and tragic story, is like when you think of like a love story or when you think of names of people who are in love, it's Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
And they don't even have a happy ending. Isn't that weird? But also like kind of slay.
Yeah. They
Yeah.
got a job that they weren't qualified for
Hmm.
and have thus been misrepresented always and forever.
Always and forever, except for sometimes when people get it. And that's nice. That's
Yeah.
refreshing. Yeah.
Yeah. So that is something I wanted to ask you about real quick before we officially get started is are we gonna
Yeah.
dive at all into like the meat of Romeo and Juliet itself, or is this gonna be like this movie specifically?
I think we're free reign to do both.
Fantastic. Great, because I have some thoughts about the story.
Yay!
Yay.
Um,
Okay. First of all, if you haven't seen this movie, you have seen the fish tank scene. I can almost guarantee
mhm,
it because
mhm.
if this is a movie of all time,
That's a
best
beautiful moment
scene
in
of all
cinema.
time. Oh my
Hmm.
gosh, it changed lives. I
Yeah.
remember being so the first time I ever watched this was I was still in Virginia, so I was what, 12 or 13?
Hmm.
Maybe younger actually too. I might have been 10 or 11. And my dad was like, "You're gonna go crazy for this movie." And I was like, "It's Shakespeare, that's stupid." Uh-uh.
Yeah.
And then the first scene was
I'm
like
11. Yeah.
the first scene was these guys just I didn't understand anything they were saying word wise.
Right.
You okay,
Because they don't
baby? I'm
change,
so
like, it's
sorry.
not like an adaptation where they change it to be
I
modern
know, I'm so
language.
sorry.
Like, they're still using the same script.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
kind of old to understand for an 11-year-old who doesn't like Shakespeare. Yeah. Which
yeah,
was not my
exactly.
experience. But that's because it takes all kinds of people to make the world.
Yeah. Um, and I don't know, you always hear this about Shakespeare, like Shakespeare needs to be performed and not just read, and like not to be that person, but like it literally does because
It's like
I understood
super
it.
true.
Yeah, because I didn't understand the words they were saying, but
But you get it.
like acting, it's like that one
Yeah.
Studio C skit where they're like acting an argument, but they're just saying like the description of the things that they would say. So like exasperated response,
Yeah.
So they're not actually
Yeah.
saying anything, but you can understand what's going on. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, it brings a whole other depth to it. And so I was like watching the story that was basically in a foreign language, just transfixed. And then the fish tank scene happened. I was like, oh,
Hmm.
No, Jason, I get it. I get it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, it's cold, so I'm gonna take you over and turn off the air conditioning real quick. But what was your first
Ooh.
experience watching it?
Apartment tour.
Yay.
My first experience with this movie is that I was already knew a lot about Shakespeare because of my
Given the
nerdy
nature of your
family
family.
situation. My first experience with this movie is that I already was familiar with this story and with Shakespeare in general. And I was like, yeah, this is probably one of the greatest adaptations of anything I've ever seen. And
And
that's
that's
true.
true.
Every time I watch it now later, I'm like, yeah, that's still true. It
Yeah,
rocks.
it does. It rips and it roars also.
Hmm. Hmm.
I would say that it's the first greatest, it's tied for first greatest adaptation of Romeo and Juliet. Um,
Uh-huh.
Close
With
contender
Nomeo
also
and Juliet?
Obviously Romeo and Juliet. We all know.
Yeah.
Um,
Don't ask us to joke about Romeo and Juliet. It's serious business.
literally. That movie has a duet with Elton John and Lady Gaga
Hmm.
just in the movie. So I
So
do
think
think
about that.
if Shakespeare were to watch those two adaptations, he'd be like, "Oh hell yeah. Yeah, uh-huh.
Hmm.
No.
Hmm.
They I mean like different ways of getting there, but yeah.
I think if Shakespeare were to meet Elton John, we'd achieve world peace.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
that's
They'd be like
true.
two great minds.
Yeah.
That is true.
They were like, this would be Shakespeare's favorite adaptation of Romeo and Juliet because he didn't know about ecstasy or like guns, um, or like cars.
Hot rod
But if he had,
cars.
he
Yeah.
exactly, he would have included them
Yeah.
in the story.
He would
And
have
so
written
this
them
is the,
in. It's just that they hadn't been invented yet. This
yeah,
is like,
exactly.
when
And
we
so,
always say, like, Karl Marx wrote Rogue One, a Star Wars story, but Star Wars hadn't been invented yet, so it didn't make any sense. Like, Shakespeare wrote Romeo plus Juliet to be directed by Baz Luhrmann, but Baz Luhrmann hadn't been
yeah,
born yet, so it didn't make any sense.
we had to wait a
But
couple
now
thousand
here we
years.
are. Yeah.
Yeah, a couple thousand, not quite.
Yeah. It just felt that way. But in fact, it
Yeah,
was just like
he's like, oh
not
my
that
gosh, this is
long.
gonna take forever. They're not gonna get it until then. Buzz Luhrmann is the
4,000
only
years,
person
and
who
they're
has
like,
ever
sorry,
truly
sorry, typo,
understood that
typo,
story.
400, 400, 400.
I'm thinking about Jesus. So Romeo and Juliet. Wait, we should do an acronym.
Oh yeah.
Shakespeare.
Shakespeare, obviously.
Yeah,
Tybalt, he's in this
he
movie.
sure is.
I wanted to do, like e-bugs. I wanted to do that, but it's E Mercutio. So it's Tybalt and Mercutio.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're Italian in the original, so that's fine.
That's true. Welcome to Women in STEM. Shakespeare, Tybalt, E. Mercutio. Yep, we're
Yeah,
here.
we've all
Romeo
seen
and
it.
Juliet. Um, the most misunderstood of all of Shakespeare's works. I have no idea if that's true.
That's okay. You can
Actually,
just state things confidently and they'll become true.
that's yeah.
That's
Can you
what I
cut
always
that
say.
out? You can leave it
Yeah.
in. Yeah. Um.
I'll either cut it out or leave it in. We'll see.
I don't know, man. I feel like Shakespeare's always it's one of those things that like you want it to be overrated so badly. It's like
Mhm.
listening to Bohemian Rhapsody again, and you're like, oh no, it really is that good. Oh
It's really
no.
good.
You watch it like
Yeah,
you read Hamlet, you watch this stupid movie, and you're like, oh my gosh. Oh
like I
my
get
gosh.
it.
No, but
Yeah,
like I get it.
it's
Yeah.
annoying.
It's so and it
Yeah,
like it is
Shakespeare
that
felt
good.
square parentheses squirrel pain. It's like so annoying. Oh, dedicated listeners will know that I once had a dream where there was this new phrase that had been invented called squain, squirrel pain. And it was like the shrimp colors of like agony. And you know that you felt a true depth of emotion, you call it squain, squirrel pain. And the
Yeah,
the
I
parenthetical
forgot
statement
about
was
that.
part of it. The parenthetical statement was part of it. So anytime somebody would mention squain, squirrel pain.
Squirrel
Like you
pain.
have to, like, as if anybody doesn't know, even though everybody in the conversation already knows. And the example was like, Kurt Cobain. Yeah, he was such a good artist because he had real squirrel pain. Anyway, but yeah, it's one of those things like if you ever listen to Nirvana, you're like, oh, they're probably overrated, and then you listen to it and you're like, ah, they got
Oh.
me again. Oh,
Yeah.
their
Speaking
cover
of
of The Man
Nirvana,
Who Sold the World by David Bowie, you're like, uh-oh, that's the best song that's ever been created. Oh no. So it's
I
like
did
that
think
when
there
you
should be
see
more Nirvana in
Shakespeare
this
done
movie.
correctly,
Mm,
there should have been
yeah.
Nirvana in this movie that would have done it.
There should have
Yeah.
like I especially the scene at the beginning where Romeo is like moping on the beach. I was like that the
He
same
should have been
song
listening to Kurt Cobain.
he should have been. I don't know that I can't remember the name of the
Yeah.
song, but the one that Batman listens to at the beginning of the Batman, Robert Pattinson. Um,
Oh,
that one should have been
yeah.
playing.
Genius.
because equal levels of angst. That's something
Yeah.
people either don't understand or don't fully appreciate about this story is that Romeo and Juliet were both young. We don't like no, I guess Romeo doesn't have an exact age. I've always pictured him as being no older than 16 and Juliet's 13. Like they're so young and like you have to capture the angst of a teenager when you're
Of
reading
like
this
being a
story
freshman in high school.
because yeah, we have talked about
Yeah.
before the worst thing that can ever happen to you is to be ages 13 through 18.
And that's continues to be true. So if
Yeah.
your two protagonists are like, let's say on average 15, yeah, they're gonna be dramatic. They're gonna make like bad
Yeah.
decisions. They're
Just
children.
anyway. And then if you add a shitty situation around them,
Yeah, yeah. And that's why I
yeah.
think sometimes people who misunderstand the story love to harp on Romeo and Juliet being like dumb children. And that's like, yeah, I guess
Yeah.
that's technically true, but you have to consider that because they're children, they shouldn't have been responsible for this much going on in their lives, you know what I mean? They're just
Exactly.
gonna sit in the little
Exactly.
sunshine.
Yay.
It's literally not their fault. They go to advice from
No.
adults who are like trying to do the best that they can, but even their trusted adults have their hands tied because of the situation of like the family feud,
Of their
right?
families. Yeah.
They have no choice. It's from the beginning. They're star-crossed lovers. We know that from
This was
like the
always
opening
going to
monologue.
happen.
It can't happen any other way because their parents are so stubborn and they can't find a way to come together and they put their children's lives at risk knowingly.
Yes.
It's like not their fault. They're
Literally
just
no
kids. What are
other
they supposed to
option.
do? They're
Yeah.
not allowed to have a high school sweetheart without it escalating into like a double
An
suicide.
all-out war.
Spoilers. Because like that's the situation that their family set them up to be in.
Exactly.
And they were too
Juliet, she
prideful to
can't.
let go of that.
Exactly. Exactly. And I like people either blame Romeo and Juliet for being teenagers or they blame their trusted adults, they blame the nurse and the friar. And
Mm-hmm.
that's also not fair. But like it is the fault of the parents and the families for just continuing this feud and not just refusing to let it go. And this movie
Mm-hmm.
more than just reading the book can or reading the play itself can convey it portrays the desperation like they literally think they
Mm-hmm.
have no other option and really they don't have a lot of other
They
options
kind of
like
don't. Yeah.
Romeo he did
It's
everything
like they
he
could have
could.
had maybe there's like three options, but then it gets narrowed down to two.
Yes,
And then it gets narrowed down to there's no option. You just have to do this one thing. Like,
exactly.
well,
They're just forced
yeah.
into horrible situations again and again. Like Romeo, he tried so hard not to fight Tybalt. He said again and again, I don't want to fight you. Like he does Tybalt doesn't know, but like, bro, we're family now. We're family. You don't have to do this. I'm not going to escalate this. And then
Right.
Mercutio died. That's his best friend. And in this movie,
Yeah.
gay lover. What like of course he has to well, he doesn't have to, but you can't expect
It would
him
be hard
not
to
to,
walk away from that. Yeah, he doesn't have to,
yeah,
but of course he has to. Because
because that's
he's
what Tybalt
16 years
wanted.
old. His parents are not in his life.
Hmm.
Mercutio is his only friend,
Yeah.
like real friend, you know?
And Tybalt came there looking for a fight. He wasn't
Yeah.
leaving without one. That he was not going to let up. He kept pushing and pushing and pushing until finally someone broke.
Yeah.
And then
And it's like, what
Romeo
did
is
you
stuck.
expect?
He's
Yeah.
heartbroken
And even in this
and so
movie,
afraid.
they read like maybe 20, but still young enough that you're like, this should not be happening. Like there should be people responsible for these guys. They're
Yeah,
too young.
literally. No, they shouldn't
Like,
be
hello.
they shouldn't be in charge of these decisions.
Shouldn't happen.
No.
Um,
And well, and then you look at
yeah.
Juliet and she is either going to like marry someone that she doesn't love and be forced
Mhm.
into it without anyone really consulting her on this, or she's going to be
Right.
thrown out on her ass and abandoned by her family, both her parents. So
Yeah.
like what option does she have? What especially in the mind of a young girl who's so
It's like it's
like
never gonna be okay again. Like either way, I'm gonna have an estranged relationship with my parents, either by their choice or
Hmm.
by mine. Like, but that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Really,
what
like, it is a beautiful story about love and loss, but it also is just a story about parenting and how to do it wrong.
yes,
Do you ever
totally.
see, like, in the movie, you see that Romeo has a family, but he's totally disconnected from them. He's always
Never
like
see
out on
him
his
with
own
them.
with like his gang buddies and whatever, you know.
Hmm.
And Juliet is like too much with her family. She has no life outside of what her parents expect her to do.
Hmm. Yeah.
She's constantly like she has to be attended by the nurse, by her cousins, you know. So they
Yes.
have no like it's like two extremes of like you can totally not care about your kid at all and neglect them, or you can smother them. And
Yeah.
either way, they're gonna kill themselves. So maybe don't do that. You
Maybe
know?
find a middle ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, totally.
Yeah.
Like it feels like he really was a brilliant author, Shakespeare, because the story is barely about them. Like it is. It's the focus
Yeah.
at the moment,
But
but
they're
there's
kind
so
of
much
like
building around it that it
yeah.
really is like it's star-crossed lovers, but also like we're watching the story and this is happening at the same time. Like we're star-crossed with the story itself because this was always going to happen because it's a
Yeah.
tragedy. We love a good tragedy, but also like it has been building and building and building for decades, these two feuding families. Like, yeah, you're either going to tear the whole city down or you're going to tear each other down. This was just
Yeah.
the catalyst that happened to be like, do you understand what I'm saying?
Not only that like the star-crossed lovers thing that their relationship was bound from the beginning to fail, but that like there was bound to be this like big war because neither side
Yeah.
will back down ever. So of course it's eventually going to escalate. It's like only a matter of time.
Yeah, exactly.
It was gonna happen.
I love, 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 love the priest. I've heard him get a lot of flack. Oh,
Yeah, I feel like in
everyone
this
loves to hate on
movie,
this story.
everyone loves to hate on this story. I feel like in this movie, I have actually a lot of respect and sympathy for the priest. First of all, he's
Yes,
cool.
he is sick as hell.
He's awesome. He has that big ass back tattoo and his like upstairs like rooftop greenhouse thing just kind of for fun. Like his little hobby is like being a chemist for fun. Cool.
Very
Like
cool.
he's
Very
awesome.
cool.
And
Yeah.
in this movie, it genuinely like you feel that he is trying to do the right thing for these
Yes.
young people,
Yes.
you know? He's
That
like, I
he
can
can't
see that
see
you're
any
in a
other way
sticky
out either.
situation. I don't know what else to do except I can get you married and I can get you a trailer in the middle of the desert
Yeah.
and then you'll
I
be out of town.
maybe this is the way that your families will finally find peace with each other. You can see that he understands that they're going to act either way.
So he's trying to give them a safe space to do that. Don't you think, Leo?
Yeah. Oh, kisses. That's nice. Yeah. Thank you. And I don't know. I love the scene where he's like arguing with Romeo at the beginning and he's talking about Rosalind and like he just pauses. Doctor Strange is it. He's got all these possibilities
Yeah.
laid out in front of him and
It's
he's
like
like,
I
okay,
can
if I
see
do
every
nothing,
possible outcome of this,
yes.
and this is the best chance we have. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. Because if he does nothing, they're going to try to do stuff on their own, but then they're gonna have no other option.
Hmm.
He would be such a proponent of good sex ed in high school because
Hmm.
he's like, I mean, like, they're gonna do it either way. You might as well try to give them a safe option, you know?
Yeah.
He did his best. He could tell he loves Romeo so much, and he immediately then loves Juliet and tries to take care of them. He's so
Yeah.
desperate. He's the only adult who's trying to do anything good for these two. Even the maid,
Yeah.
she tries,
He's the only one who's
the nurse,
proactive. Yeah.
yes, she tries at first, but then everything happens with Paris, who, by the way, is Paul Rudd in this.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, young Paul Rudd.
Yeah. This
And
movie
again,
is dare I say perfectly cast?
I think that's true. I
I
think
think
that's
it's
true.
true.
I think that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Leonardo DiCaprio was Baz Luhrmann's first choice. A lot of other
Hmm.
people were considered, but Wait, oh my gosh. Okay, so I do think Mercutio is perfectly cast. I can't remember the name of the actor at the moment, but um
He's
15 out of 10.
incredible. Yeah.
What a
No
performance.
one else
By
has
my heel,
ever
I
done
care
it like
not,
he has done it.
but like
No one has ever done it like he's done it.
never, ever. No, that man,
That's why the role was written. Like
that's
Shakespeare
another
wrote
one.
this role and then it didn't make any sense for
Yeah.
hundreds of years. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
I love him
Incredible.
so much. He has the most, he's the perfect, oh my gosh, you can just see what it could have been if it had worked out. Like he's just the comic relief best friend, but also has like a
Mhm.
troubled home life. He's like, I didn't watch all of Outer Banks, but he's like that one guy in Outer Banks where he's like a little bit goofy and like kind of crazy, but also is deeply troubled and then gets caught in the crossfires.
Oh
Yeah.
no.
But on the note of
Yeah.
Mercutio, I did learn that Sam Rockwell was considered.
Oh, I feel like
Yeah.
that would have been a much different vibe.
Yeah.
Like it could have worked, except that Harold Perrineau existed, and so now it's like, well,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Um, I famous proponents
that's
of Sam Rockwell on this
fascinating.
channel. We
Yeah.
cannot say enough good things about him. We love him so much. I love him. Um, I would like to see a universe where he was cast, just
Mhm.
so I could have it as like a fun little backup. Not because I think it would be better. Again, I love him so
Right.
much. Respectfully, he couldn't have done that.
Everyone knows that this is the best performance of Mercutio that's ever been done.
Literally ever. Literally.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
there's
I mean,
I Shakespeare
and you're
watched
like,
this
maybe we're hyping it up a
openly
little bit.
weeping.
Watch the
No,
movie
we're
and tell
underselling
me
it.
I'm wrong.
This is literally the RRR of Mercutio performances because there's no way that you could possibly overhype it. Again, I was a child. I was like 10 years old. Watch like I'd say I had a relatively sheltered childhood, not overly sheltered, but enough where I was like, that man's in a dress. Let's
Hmm.
see where he's going with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stood out as unusual,
Yeah.
but not
I'm like,
nefarious. Yeah.
okay, let's yeah. And but because my parents are wonderful, and that wasn't like a oh my, never. And also
Right.
kind of a fun little
Jason
Shakespeare reference.
recommended the movie to you.
Yeah, knowing that it would
Yeah.
change who I was as a person and was correct also. But also like Shakespeare used to be only performed by men all anyway. So like
Yeah, that's
men would
true.
be the women. And it's like double because he looks sick as hell in the dress.
Mhm.
And there you go. What more do you know?
What more could you possibly ask for? Yeah,
The Queen Mab speech.
dude. This movie is incredible, is what we're saying.
Yeah. And it definitely made me cry twice
Yeah.
because when Mercutio dies and his death performance, because he dies to protect Romeo. Okay. And then is like trying to laugh it off, but it's in a hysterical kind of manic way. And then his
Yeah.
dying breath is a plague over both your houses. As an actual real life hurricane is coming in on the horizon, and a real one. They had to shut down filming because of it.
Mother Earth was like, oh gosh, I gotta step in here.
Yeah,
This is too
you gotta
much, you
cool
know?
it down. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And I will say,
It's sickening.
it literally puts a rock in your stomach. I felt that that man had truly died. Like,
Yeah.
my suspension of disbelief was
You're like,
it was so suspended.
that's a little known fact that they actually killed him in real life for that movie.
No.
It's like when you're watching Lord of the Rings and you're like, he broke his foot. This is the
Dude,
first movie I've ever seen.
the greatest
Um,
moment of my life
yeah,
was when I was watching Lord of the Rings for the first time with a couple of my pals. Not me. I was watching it. I've seen them 1,000 times, but they were watching them for the first
right,
time.
right,
It was like three huge Lord of the Rings fans and big nerds. Like you meet them and you think these are the type of people who love Lord of the Rings. And it's right, so it's not offensive.
right, right.
But they were watching the movies for the first time and that scene came up and no one said anything. And I was like,
You
yeah,
don't know.
did you guys know? I got to say it. I got to say it, and it wasn't like an thing. No one
Everyone
knew.
knows that. That's awesome.
It was the greatest moment of my life. Another
Yeah,
thing
but
too
now
about the
you get to do
movie,
that for this movie too. You can say
yeah,
he
they
died.
actually killed him. It's sad, but he did it willingly. He actually suggested
Yeah,
it. He
it was
gave his
actually
life for
his
this
idea.
performance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't even shoot him with a real bullet. It was makeup, but then just the power of his performance killed him anyway.
Acting Tulpa. I would have liked to see Sam Rockwell do that. Young Sam Rockwell, little bitty baby Sam Rockwell,
Mhm.
still young and so full of hope before he became
Yeah.
fully Sam Rockwell. That would have been amazing.
Yeah.
Another note is Leonardo DiCaprio. I don't know if I'm just saying this high off the freshness of rewatching the movie. I do think that he's one of those people that is much like Brad Pitt, an actor and not
Yeah.
just a star. You know?
He's put into the box of a star, but he has acting chops for real.
Yeah, because when Mercutio
Yeah.
died and then he went after Tybalt, like it was chilling.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, like don't make eye
Yeah.
contact.
He's
He's
incredible. Like
an
this
incredibly
is why
talented
he's
actor.
famous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like yeah, no, he deserves that.
It's because he's an actor
Yeah.
first. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Incredible.
Yeah. That was,
Everything
I
I've
mean,
seen
some
him
of the
in, I'm
acting of
like,
all time.
oh, yeah, I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Fine. You win. Yeah, he's talented. He obviously works hard and like loves the craft. Okay, sure. Yeah.
He loves the craft
Fine.
and women younger than 25.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And that stayed consistent through his whole career. At first it made sense because he was 25,
And then it
but
just
now it
kept
makes like
staying.
it becomes less and less acceptable, but we're like
Yeah.
we can enjoy his movies without liking him particularly as a person. It's like I don't
Yeah,
know
because he
him.
is
Why would
talented.
I
Sure,
like
let's
him?
take that. It's like how
Yeah.
you can like the 1975 and say,
Yeah.
sure, oh, yep, okay, I know of Maddie Healy. Sure do.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about that is that you could have named like so many bands and artists. Like this is common, right? Where you
Yeah.
have to separate the art from the artist, like you just
Yeah.
kind of have to.
This is
So
why,
it's good to
knock on wood,
practice.
Fall Out Boy has yet to be super problematic. And I just felt a
Yeah.
chill go up my spine,
Yeah, you
and
should knock on wood
I've
for real.
cursed them. I
Um,
think, yeah, that's
yeah.
a bad
So this
omen.
movie is good practice if you're trying to like separate the art from the artist, but you're like, I don't know
Yeah,
how.
yeah.
This one's okay because I don't know of any like serious like crimes that he's committed. I just know that it's like he
He's a
skews
little,
weirdly young.
yeah, yeah. I
So it's
also,
like problematic, but it's not like illegal, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
this is
yeah.
like it's a good toe in the water of like ignoring what people's real lives are like and enjoying the art that they
Exactly.
create. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Also, I turned 26 in a couple months. Well, like 6 months,
Yeah.
roughly. So I still have a shot with him.
Leo, if you're watching this, time's ticking. Hit us up.
Yeah.
Send us an email at saintwinnem at
They originally wanted Natalie Portman for the role of Claire Danes' character, who I'm blanking on her name right now.
Oh. It starts with a J?
Something, maybe. Jane?
Yeah. No,
Georgia.
it's like something Italian.
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't
It'll
speak
come to
Italian.
us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, they originally wanted Natalie Portman for the role, but she actually was 13, and they were like, "This is going to be perfect. She's the same age as the girl." Um,
Hmm.
but then they had her next to Leonardo DiCaprio, who was 21 at the time, and they were like, "Oh,
It's like too obvious that he's
oh,
20 at that point. Yeah.
yeah, exactly." With Claire Danes, they kind of make it kind of evens out as being like they could be like 17.
Hmm.
It's
Because he's
Shakespeare.
a young, fresh-faced 21,
Yeah, he could
but
pass for
you
a
can only be
teenager
with
with Claire
somebody so
Danes.
young before it's like, oh, okay,
Yeah, and like,
he's an
yeah, that
adult.
was how
Yeah.
it was written. But also, Shakespeare wasn't actually casting 13-year-old girls in it. He just wanted to like kind of highlight, hey, this is weird, right? Like, yikes.
We're like, look how
Um,
young they are. Yeah.
yeah, and if you cast a 13-year-old girl to make out with a 21-year-old guy, that's weird. Then you're doing that,
Yeah.
and you're doing the
Yeah.
thing that he was trying to be like, hey, this is weird, right? So like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yikes.
It's like that
Yeah.
thing of like
Oof.
if you're creating satire but it's indistinguishable from the real thing, you just created the real thing again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So I'm really glad that they did not do that because yikes. Yikes, dude.
yeah. It would have been
That's
weird.
weird that they even
Plus,
considered it, honestly.
then we wouldn't get to see Claire Danes' performance. And I thought
Yeah.
she was great. The reason that they cast her, I heard, was that like they had like chemistry tests with a bunch of different people, and she was the only one who wasn't so starstruck by Leonardo DiCaprio that she could actually say the lines.
She's like,
And
yeah,
they're
I'm a
like, well,
professional.
I guess she's the one. Yeah, she's like, okay, those are children.
I forget that he
They're
was
all
a
the same
star
age.
because he was like a Hollywood heartthrob as a teen.
Forever. Like he was an actor for
Like
a
he
long time.
always has been. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
I don't think he's ever had a real job, which is probably why he's so weird. But anyway,
Yeah. Is she, I mean, talk about another perfect performance. Girl.
yeah.
Because after her dad tells her, no, you gotta marry Paris, who was played by Paul Rudd, she breaks my heart.
Yeah.
Like fully and completely. I'm like, oh no. Oh.
It's just
Oh,
no,
you're just a
she's
little
just a little
girl.
girl.
And you need a hug and a mom.
But her
And parents
mom
who don't
is
hate you.
yeah, her mom is somehow both smothering and like distant.
Distant.
Their whole thing is just like, they are like these huge business moguls, they're famous, whatever. And so her mom is very like materialistic.
And also into Paris, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
definitely played that way in this movie.
Yeah,
She's
super.
so gonna
Yeah.
have an affair on her husband with Paris after like
Yeah. It's like weird.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I get
Because
it.
there's
It's Paul
one thing
Rudd.
to be like, if your kid, because here's the thing, if that's your kid, that's somebody your child's age. So it's one thing to like see somebody that your kid is dating and be like, oh, he's so cute. Like you could admire, oh, that's a handsome young man. But then
Hmm.
there's that, and then there's like fawning all over him, like for real.
Yeah. And like stroking his face and holding his hand and
Yeah,
like dragging him
like a
all around.
lot.
And it's like, interesting. Interesting.
Weird.
Um, I do kind of love that Paris in this one is just living. He's like,
Yeah.
oh yay, I'm gonna be
Yeah, he
married.
has
La di da di
no
da.
like sinister plans. He
No.
has no plans kind of at all. They're just like, you want to marry our daughter? And she's like, so pretty. So he's like, okay. He,
Yay.
yeah,
Oh
and he's
goody, oh
super like,
boy.
he's not evil. Like, he's just played super nice. Everybody loves
Yeah.
him. Like, he's very agreeable. It feels like it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for Juliet to marry Paris, except that they
Hmm.
have nothing in common. They don't talk
Hmm.
to each other. He only talks to her mom. And she's like, what if I had a say in my life for once?
Yeah.
And that's like the deeper issue. Not there's nothing wrong with Paris played by Paul Rudd, obviously.
Right.
But there's something wrong with like the arrangement of the marriage in this culture where like people don't really do that anymore because they're like living on the beach in the late
Yeah.
90s. You know what I mean? Like it's weird and she doesn't agree
Yeah.
with it and she should have more say in her young life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Paul Rudd is just nice.
He is. And
Yeah.
again, if they delayed the marriage, if they waited, you know, in, I mean, give her 7 years to be at least 20, I feel like at that point she could
Yeah.
calm down a little bit respectfully. I'm just saying, in my
Yeah.
own personal,
And
I
just
felt
have
like a
some
person,
perspective, some
yeah,
years under her belt. Yeah.
yeah, you can't be, I don't think you're really a person until you're about 19 or 20. That's when you start to be a person. And you're like, oh, thank
Yeah.
goodness, I can calm down from being a teenager.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that she was being stupid or irrational. Well, she was being irrational, but
She was doing she was
that
doing the
just
best
goes
that
with the
she could
territory
because
of
she was a
being
child.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. She
Yeah.
has like I have in no way am I blaming her or like looking down on her at all. She is not at fault here. She is the victim of bad parenting and um being in a tragedy. You can't escape
Yeah.
that, unfortunately. Many have tried. Like if they had waited a little bit of time, even a year,
Yeah. Yeah.
it maybe would
It's
have
just
given
everything,
like
yeah, everything in her life is so immediate.
yeah. And
They're like, hey, we thought, maybe we could set you up with Paris. And she's like, okay, I guess. And then they're like,
Next
you're
week?
going to marry Paris next week. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, whoa, maybe I could like buy a girl dinner first or something. My gosh.
Yeah.
Like, that justifies the speed of like, oh, I have to marry Romeo right now.
Yeah.
And Tybalt has to come for Romeo right now and start a fight and get killed, and then Romeo has to leave town right now, and you know what I mean? Like everything just escalates
Exactly.
and it's happening so fast
Yeah.
because nobody is just like, well, if they're destined to be together, they can take their time.
How?
There's no space allowed for that. It has to be right now.
Exactly. And that
Yeah.
I again, the seeing it performed and seeing it all play out, you feel the urgency of it. And you feel the
Yeah.
desperation of these young
It's
people, and you
stressful.
feel locked into the situation as much as they are. And you feel the care for the like of the priest who wants so desperately to help them but doesn't see any other way out. He's doing the best he
Yeah.
can. They're all doing the best they can. It's just that they're in a tragedy and everything's happening to
Yeah.
them and there's no escaping it. I love tragedies. I love them. I love them. Oh my gosh, they're so good. Like,
Yeah.
and okay, in starting the movie on the whole newscast thing.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking about that as well. Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah. Hmm.
You know? That's like when we talk about something being a good, like, modern adaptation, it's not only because they cast really great people and they had cool, like, the costumes are fun and whatever, it's like
Yeah.
they genuinely understand the story and understand their current setting.
Yeah.
And it's necessary to have both of those things.
Yeah.
So they can be like, well, these are like big, important people. Let's say they're businessmen and they both have like skyscrapers with their names on them that face each other because they hate each
Yeah.
other. And then it's like that reads to a modern audience. You're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I understand what that is. And you see like the newscast at the beginning and at the end
Yeah.
ties it in together, and you're like, oh, this is like a public thing. Like it's not just like something that happened quietly. Everyone knows the Montagues and the Capulets. This is a big deal.
Exactly. It's explosive. And I love like we're starting at the beginning. That's exactly. We know where it's ending as soon as it begins. That's insane. And it's not just because it's been in the public arena for so long. It's because that was how it was written to be. We start with the lines like two lovers. Y'all know
Mm-hmm.
this is where we're gonna end.
Yeah,
But like, let's see how
we
we got
already
here,
know.
you know? That's
Yeah,
awesome. That's awesome. What Shakespeare said spoilers, who? Huh?
yeah. It's like you're gonna know, and you're still gonna be swept away in the story because I know what I'm doing.
And you do. And the scene at the end too, where Romeo is like, he's on her, what would you call it? It's not like a pyre. It's just
Yeah, it's
like
like
deathbed.
it's almost like an altar or something. She's not
Yeah.
fully in a casket, but
Yeah.
she's in the like morgue. No, the other word
Crypt?
where people go. Yeah, crypt could be the right word. Yeah,
Yeah. Mausoleum, like place for
mausoleum.
death.
Because I was like,
Hey.
it starts with an M and it's for death, but it's not when they're doing like the autopsy. It's like after. Yeah, and they also didn't do an autopsy, by the way. They just were
No,
like, well, she's dead, no apparent cause. Let's bury her alive. Yeah, that's
probably
interesting.
good they didn't, because then she would have died for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Cut the story a little short.
Yeah.
But it's just
Um,
interesting to think about.
this is a story that would be very, very difficult to translate into a day with cell phones, as a lot of stories would be, because you have the option of just instant communication always.
Yeah,
So 90s is the perfect time to set pretty much every
yeah,
story ever. Sure, people have home phones, but that's not going to do him any good when he's in exile.
right. Yeah, he
Hmm.
hasn't set up his home phone in his trailer in the middle of nowhere. He
The,
just got there and he's basically a child.
he's so little. He's just
Like he's
playing
20, but
baseball out there.
yeah, alone. It's so
Yeah,
sad.
so sad. It's oh my gosh, it's so good. Um, let's see. Oh, Claire Danes, her first day of filming was the scene after they spend the night together where they're like shirtless in bed together. Why'd
Uh-huh.
they do that? They could have picked any other scene to start with. That's
Yeah.
so like that's an insane intense thing to start with anyway, let alone
Yeah.
with Hollywood heartthrob Leonardo DiCaprio, even though you're the only
Yeah.
person who was apparently brave enough to be able to look him in the eye. Like, come on. You you're
It's
testing
still
this poor girl
crazy.
on purpose. I'm like,
Yeah.
can't you let them get to know each other a little bit first?
Yeah.
That just seems
Like
like it's a crazy way to start
what
a
better way to
professional
get to know each
relationship.
other? Yeah.
Yeah. I have another trivia fact about the production of the movie, and it is that the hairstylist was kidnapped and held for a $300 ransom,
Yes.
and Baz Luhrmann paid it. But that's ridiculous on so many levels because why would you go through the trouble of kidnapping someone and only keeping them for $300?
Right.
Why wouldn't you go a little bit higher? Because I feel like that was barely a mild inconvenience. I feel
Yeah.
like probably the reason that he paid for it out of his own pocket was like, oh, no big deal then.
It's like, oh, 300?
Well, that's a deal.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
do you think
that's
he was paying that much
insane.
in salary? I don't,
Like I
eh,
know it was the 90s,
but
but it
inflation
was
can't be
also
that
it was the
crazy.
90s. It's not
Yeah,
like money was so different back then. You know what I mean? Like if you hear of somebody who was
yeah.
kidnapped in like 1900 or earlier, then you'd be like, oh,
Hmm.
$300, that's a big deal. But this
Sure.
is like 1996
Yeah.
to ask for $300. Like if you're strapped for cash, you can just ask somebody to
Yeah, for
spot
that
you. You
much?
know what I
Like, what
mean?
could, genuinely, why not ask for more? I'm so confused. You kidnapped someone. If I were kidnapped and I found out they only wanted me for $300, I'd be pissed. Um, so Romeo and Juliet,
I've seen it.
I have as well. Known as the highest grossing live action Shakespeare adaptation. Also, I love that they called it William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. Like, this is the last word on Romeo and
Right.
Juliet. Like, yeah, y'all
Anybody
can
else
do
who
Romeo and
doesn't.
Juliet, but this one is his.
And I think that's fair, to be honest.
Also, yep, I agree. Children's choir performing a cover of When Doves Cry by Prince. Um,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I didn't even notice this. Um, Montagues are yellow and Capulets are blue, and then all the fish in the fish tank are blue and yellow.
And
Um,
that's fine.
and that's yeah, that's totally okay. Also, all of their guns are swords,
Oh, yeah, that's true.
and
I
that's
think
really
maybe I
good.
first watched this movie with Ian because he was like, get it? Those are swords, but they're guns. They're guns that are named after swords. And I was like,
Yeah,
totally.
yeah.
Yeah.
I just, this is, it was the perfect energy to bring into a Shakespeare adaptation. You treat the serious things
Yeah.
so seriously. But then also the first scene is Tybalt and he's like licking the back of his gun and he's flamencoing around, shooting people.
Yeah.
That's
Just kind of for fun.
ridiculous. Yeah.
The Montagues and Capulets, you learn about their beef when they're at the gas station.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
And one
Like
of
if you're
the,
gonna set this in modern America, that's like name a better
where
spot for
else are you
that.
going to do it?
Yeah.
Everything happens at a gas station. That's
Mhm.
real. One of the guys has a black eye, and he was worried he was going to get fired because that was a real thing that the actor had. He has a black eye, and then he showed up to work. He's like, "Hello," and the director's like, "Yo, that's sick. Actually, now we don't have to
Perfect.
put that on your makeup every day. Like, we just
Mhm.
can like, there you go. You just have a black eye, and that's perfect. Because yeah, they're.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever. They're youths. They get into
Yeah,
scuffs.
he
I don't know. I think it is my dad told me this when we watched it for the first time and I've never been able to verify it, meaning I have never looked it up, but
Mhm.
he told me that it's actually the most accurate, like it follows the plot points most closely and it has the script used in the right places at the right times a lot of the time, because sometimes they have to change things around.
Yeah.
So again, I
I
don't know
think
if that's
that
true,
is
but
probably probably true, but then I don't know how many other adaptations that I've seen that I'm
I've
like
seen like four or
closely following
five.
the script, you know?
Right, yeah. I don't know why, but um
Did you see the
for
one that's like old and the actor looks like Zac Efron?
Zac
Their name is
Efron,
Zac Efron. Yeah,
yes,
that one's weird.
exactly like him. Frighteningly similar. They're not even related. We looked. Yeah, we in ninth grade is when we studied Romeo and Juliet, and we watched three different adaptations of it,
Yeah,
which was
I think
awesome.
we did as well. Yeah,
Not this
it's a
one,
great story.
unfortunately.
Like, why not?
It is,
Yeah.
sure. And again, it should be
Well, this one
performed and
has a
not
man in a
read,
dress, so you can't show that in schools.
right, heaven forbid, and
That would be
conservative North
crazy.
Dakota. No.
Yeah.
We did watch Saving Private Ryan though, and that's
Oh, well,
okay.
yeah, because for some reason, conservative parents who don't let their children watch rated R movies make one exception, and it is Saving Private Ryan every time.
Yeah, why? I don't
I
like that
don't know.
movie.
I think
I've seen it
I
twice in both times in school, and I didn't want to watch it then.
it's
It
weird
makes me sad.
because
Weird, right?
twice in school,
Twice.
you should have gotten a day off. Be like, oh, I've actually already seen this one, so I don't have to come in
I
to class
know.
today.
Well, okay, that actually happened with a different movie because my parents were like, they had to send home permission slips, and my parents were like, yeah, you don't have to watch that one. So you know what I had to study instead was the Armenian genocide for 2 full days while they were watching the movie in class. Yep, that's right. I had to study the Armenian genocide, and he'd come out every 20 minutes to make sure that I was actually doing that.
That seems like a weird punishment.
I know. That's an
Because that's
insane
an
thing to make me
important
do.
thing. That's an important thing to know about. But it's crazy
Absolutely.
for them to be like, nobody else needs to know about this. Just people who
Yeah,
don't
no,
like Saving
just
Private
me.
Ryan.
Yeah,
Because Saving Private Ryan is about a different thing. Like if they
I
were watching
know.
a
That's the thing.
movie
They're not even related.
about
I know. To this day, I don't get it. I'm like, you could nothing else? Nothing else. That's
they could have
crazy.
at least picked like you have to learn more about the same conflict that they're talking about in the movie.
Right.
Right?
Like,
That's so
I
weird.
don't understand. It was awful. Yeah.
Was it like
This movie,
worksheets?
no, I had to do the research on I had to put together a presentation about it, not to give to the class, to give to him. So I had to put in all the pictures.
So you had to submit a presentation,
I didn't submit
pictures.
it. Nope, I didn't submit it. I had to come in early before class and
You
give
had
it
to give the presentation?
to him, not to anyone else, to him.
It really does seem like, because that wouldn't be necessarily a bad assignment, but it does seem like it is punishment for not watching the movie.
It totally does, right? That's a crazy thing. I was
Because it's
14.
not like anybody else had to make a presentation about the movie that
Saving
they
Private Ryan.
watched.
No.
To go, for you to have to give the presentation feels cruel and unusual, frankly.
Yeah, not just to submit it. No, I had to give it to him. That was awesome. That was great. I loved
It
that.
is weird. It's so
Yeah.
weird.
Anyway, it's all okay because this movie
Movies.
exists.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe one day we can
Uh,
do Much Ado About Nothing.
for a split second, I thought you were gonna say Saving Private Ryan, and I was like, we just said it's not that good of a movie.
No, we don't have to talk
Why?
about that one ever, please.
Yeah, I was like, I wouldn't plan to. I have nothing to say about it.
Yeah, I don't even know. Like, so genuinely, I don't even know what the movie is about. I guess it's Saving Private Ryan, but the only thing that I know about the movie is the first scene, which is the most awful, gratuitous violence. Like, I know we
Yeah,
talk about we talk about gratuitous violence on the channel, but when I talk about it, I mean fun, gratuitous violence, like punching a
yeah,
tiger in the
straight fun.
face or putting a man's arm through a deer antler or like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or like in Bahubali, where he shish kebabs people. That's
that's
funny
fun. That's fun because it's but I don't want to watch
because it's
people get
fun.
blown up based on true story,
No, if it's based on
you
true
know.
story, it's like sad. And
Yeah.
it makes it feel like a war movie that's actually pro-war, which has
Yeah.
just never been the right call. You know what I mean? Like things that are
Yeah.
about war but that are anti-war
Lord of the
are
Rings.
much more interesting, first of all. And I feel like they kind of lean usually less toward gratuitous violence. In a lot of cases, they'll be less violent,
And Mad Max Fury Road.
even though they're about the horrors of war. They're like, you get it. Maybe they trust their audience more. movies that are anti-war
Yeah.
trust the audience to understand the message, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm cooking up a theory. It's still in the works, but let's talk
I
Romeo and
there
Juliet.
there could be meat to that. Yeah. Something to essay
Yeah.
later. I don't know. It's perfect. I mean, perfect
Is there
casting.
any? Yes, there's a few
Um,
more things that we want to say about production. Like it's perfectly cast, the
yeah.
perfect setting,
Yeah.
the direction is really great.
Yeah.
The costumes are wonderful and they make so much sense.
Yeah. Again, Tybalt.
And not to mention Mercutio and his little sparkly silver thing. Okay, you know, why not?
All right. All right.
And that's why it's William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. Thank you.
Amen. Period.
I feel like there was something else that I was gonna say, but now I don't remember. Oh, I do remember it. And the not the very, very end, but like the last scene with them together, you know, where they're like one of them is killing himself and the other one
Yeah.
is like, I'm not really dead, and it's like, you know,
Yeah.
um, it's an interesting interpretation because they're not always like depending on what you watch, they don't even necessarily see the other person alive,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned this. I was going to talk
Like
about it
he
too.
would come up and see that she's dead and kill himself, and then she would wake up and be like,
Right.
"You villain! You didn't even save any for me," which is funny.
Oh my gosh.
It's like devastating, but it's also like, wow, in the face of everything, Juliet is clever. Like she's funny. Yeah, it's interesting, and I think what's especially like could be like cheesy or overdone, but that works is very effective in this movie is that I think they give Juliet's last line to Romeo
Oh,
because they see each other.
yeah.
She starts waking up as he starts dying, and
Right.
they recognize
And
the
it's
tragedy
so
that they're in,
heartbreaking.
which is like
It's so much
worse.
worse, dude. It's so much
it's
worse.
it's so much
It's
worse,
so
but
cruel.
it's also yeah, it's so mean. It's like why would you do that? But then it's
Yeah.
also you want it to happen.
Yeah.
Because you want them to see each other one last time
One last time.
and know that it could have been different.
Yeah.
You know, it's like hopeful
Yeah.
just for a second, even though it's the saddest scene you've ever seen.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so
It's so
typically
painful. Uh, Go ahead.
typically Juliet will see that Romeo has killed himself. She wakes up and he's already dead. And so she kisses the poison from his lips.
Yeah.
Thus with a kiss I die, and then stabs herself, right?
Yeah.
So to give him the line, they cooked with that.
I can't, Shakespeare watching that and he's like, oh, actually, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I do accept constructive criticism
Yeah.
because you're right.
Because it's
That
like
yeah, no, that's the way to do
usually,
it.
yeah. And
Yeah.
it wouldn't work with any other production, but because they've
Yeah.
been both so campy and ridiculous and so serious,
So
it sets the
serious.
perfect tone to be able to, you know, for them to see each other in that way.
Yeah. And again,
Yeah.
because the acting is so, I mean, heartbreakingly perfect.
Yeah.
They needed to be able to really deliver that. Like her waking up out of like the she's still a little bit addled from the drugs,
Uh-huh.
kind of waking
And
up, seeing
it's
him
like
there, and it makes
paralysis,
sense.
right? So she can't quite move or speak.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And again, it makes sense that she's not panicking just yet because the priest told her that he was going to be here. He told her
Mhm.
that he was going to contact Romeo and make sure that he knew what was going on.
Yeah.
So she is like, yeah, he's here. Great. This is according to plan. And then oh my gosh, they could have had her just say something or make a noise or like he feels her move. They had to do the cheek touch. And that one is kind of a shitty move.
Yeah, they
It
made it
hurts.
personal just then.
Yeah, that one, ouch, that hurted.
Owie.
Yeah,
Ooh,
yikes. And
owie.
like and the shots too, the direction right there where they're both, it's just like both dead center, both looking dead into the camera. And that kind of shot very rarely works. Like you need to have it there for a purpose because it's very jarring.
Yeah.
Um,
But it's supposed to be. So it works really well in this because it's like, oh no,
oh,
they're not supposed to see each other. Like, so
oh
bad.
no, oh
But
no.
it's like, and
Yeah,
that's another one of those things that I think people find kind of cheesy most of the time, but it
yeah,
really works because it's the movie that it's in. It's like when we were talking
yeah.
about Samurai Rebellion, you know, when she like walks in to the like master and he's with the other woman and they like anime zoom in. It's
Yeah,
it's
that's really
awesome.
funny. It's sick.
Yeah, it's really
And
funny,
it's
but it
like,
like it works for that movie, you know?
yeah, and like, because they're not doing it as like an homage to anything or as a reference or to be funny. Like, that was just how they could communicate that, like, visually. And we talk about this a lot, but in order to really enjoy things, you need to be able to let go of that cringy, embarrassing part of yourself. And that, I think, is part of the tragedy in Romeo and Juliet, is because it's taught, like, in Bismarck, at least across the board, it's taught freshman year of high school. So it's taught when you're 14, which is, again, at your most cringy and most upset and angsty,
Mhm. But it's also when you're the
heartbreakingly,
same age as
as the
the
characters.
characters.
Heartbreakingly, you could
Yeah.
potentially relate to them so well. Unfortunately, you're not going to, because this is high school and everything and caring about anything is lame and stupid and
Yeah.
embarrassing.
Yeah.
And so watching all three productions, I remember getting to this scene and just having people laugh. Oh, every single time, because it was always ridiculous, because the over the top and so, I don't want to say overacted, but just dramatic, because it's not overacted,
Mhm.
it's acted, because this
It's
is
acted.
the
We're
thing that's
acting.
have ever happened, you know? Like, she has the dead body of her husband in her lap because he thought she was dead, like,
Yeah.
after the
Yeah.
worst week of her life. You could, I think this is an appropriate reaction. Let the girl scream, you know? And it's so, like, it's so freeing once you realize you can let yourself care about these things and actually just succumb to the horror of it a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, okay, if you're being super self-conscious, and yeah, it's kind of crazy. That's crazy. That's super, like, wow, that's over dramatic, right? And like, just
Mhm.
like, shut up, you know?
It's like
Let,
let people
like,
enjoy things, but like let yourself enjoy things.
yeah, let your
Let
heart
yourself
break.
take something, like be sincere about something.
Yeah.
It's okay. You're not gonna
Let
die from
it
it.
soak into your bones. Oh my gosh, the panic in that last 20 minutes, it's overwhelming.
Because it's
Yeah.
still a tragedy of urgency. Like the whole
Yeah.
time, you're like, wait. But if you just had a little more time, and then even like down to
Yeah.
these last moments, you're
The
like, wait,
last two
like
seconds,
don't do
she's
it
going
just
to
yet.
move.
She's
She's
gonna wake
moving.
up. Like
She's gonna,
she
as
can
she
see
touches
you.
his cheek, and it's just too late. It is
Yeah,
just too late. It's like when you're like listening to Hades Town and they're almost there. They're almost there. Don't turn around. Don't look. And like,
he
you have
has
to.
to.
You have, like,
That's the story.
it's a tragedy over and over again. It's never gonna change. That's all I had to say about it. Damn.
Damn, that's crazy.
Wait, actually, no, I do have one more thing to say. Damn, that's crazy. Um, the priest, I actually do love, like, it's kind of implied that he has had, like, kind of a checkered past,
Mhm.
and that this was a life that he chose for himself. And you can read a lot into that. Like, how I choose to read into it is that he has also let people down in his life. He has also abandoned something that is the only thing that he's ever known. He sees himself in these young kids that have very limited options and is trying to do for them what no one did for him. And I again say, in his defense, if he had done nothing, it might not have happened exactly this way, but they still both would have died. It wouldn't have happened exactly the way that it did, but it still would have been a tragedy,
Yeah,
because they were their kids, and they're going to
they're gonna
take
make
action
childlike decisions. They're
either
gonna
way.
act
Exactly. Yeah.
quickly and
Yeah.
without thinking everything through. And especially because when they try to think things through, they get bad advice
Yeah.
from trusted adults every time.
Yeah. And I really like him a lot. I think he's played perfectly. I also read that
Yeah.
he's the only actor who delivered his lines in iambic pentameter,
Oh, yeah.
and that's sexy, I think. I don't know.
Everyone else is more like
Natural.
casual, natural
Yeah,
with it.
but
Yeah.
also I don't
But he's
feel like
very
he's
formal because
not,
he is the priest, you
he
know?
is, yeah,
So it gives you this level of like distinction. Like he still fits in the world.
exactly, yeah.
Oh,
And
just
it's
yeah.
subtle enough that it's not, it doesn't feel stilted. It's not overly formal. It's not, hello,
You
I am
know?
reading Shakespeare lines right now. It still
Yeah.
feels natural,
Which is
but it is
annoying.
something that you can't, I wouldn't have thought that, but hearing that fact, it made sense. I was like, oh yeah, okay, no, that I get it. I love him. He's my favorite. What a character. What a
Character of
what
all time, I'd say.
may possibly again
And,
back tattoo.
and he's just hanging out up there.
Yeah, tank top. He's just
Mhm.
chilling, and then slowly puts his robes on and is like, yeah, no, this is my job. I take this seriously. And you're like, yes, sir, you do. He's awesome. He's so cool. I love the nurse. I love that she's just so like again, well-meaning, and she's not Juliet's mom, but she's a maternal figure and wants her safe and then gives her bad advice. And it's so, everything is so sad.
Yeah.
Every choice makes perfect sense.
But in like the worst way.
Yeah,
Yeah. This movie rocks. Okay,
it
there's a lot to
super
think
does.
about.
Yeah.
It's like we always say, what are the consequences? What are the implications? This story provides you a lot of opportunities to think about the consequences and think about the implications. There's a lot going on. Yeah.
I do have one more thing to say. Hold on. I need to, maybe you know the line off the top of your head, potentially. It's when they're getting married and Father Lawrence is talking about love and moderation. The sweetest honey is loathsome in his own deliciousness.
That's
This
what I always say.
line, this line is relevant to me because one time when I was very, very young, I had a sore throat and my dad said, I know what will help. And he poured, you know how every house has like normal size spoons and then little spoons that are more fun, but then also you have big spoons that could never ever fit into anybody's mouth.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's like a serving spoon more than anything. He took big
Yeah.
serving spoon, filled it full of so much honey, and scooped it in my mouth, and it was traumatic. It was the most horrible thing that has ever happened to me. It coated my mouth. I couldn't get rid of the taste, and I did not like honey for the next 15 some odd years of my life. I was like, that
Uh-huh.
was this is awful. It's awful. I have only just recently started to like appreciate honey. And it's like Ian with tomatoes, actually. I've had to teach myself kind of quietly to get back into it because I'm like, it's not gonna hurt you anymore. Yeah, I just really like that line, and
It's a
that's
good
all.
one. My
Yeah.
family always say this is like from something, but I don't remember what it is. But we always say, Shakespeare really knew what he meant when he wrote that. I was just saying nothing.
He knew what he meant. That's funny.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
takes a minute because at first you're like, yeah, that's just what people say. But the saying is
Mhm.
actually he knew what he
Knew
was
what he was
saying.
doing.
He knew
Yeah.
what he was
Mhm.
doing. Yeah.
Yeah. He knew what he meant. That's true.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say that about
Shakespeare
myself.
really
I know what I meant.
Shakespeare really knew what he meant when he did that. Yeah.
Yeah. If I have any more thoughts, I will text them to you, but I think I have no more.
Okay. I think that I may have had one, but I lost it, so it must not have been that important. So,
The glimmering of a fish in the water.
mhm. So
Yeah.
we're probably good.
Yay.
And
Okay.
sometime this week, I'm gonna watch The Lone Ranger.
You're gonna watch it?
Yeah,
That's
so that we
amazing.
can talk about it.
Great. I would, you're very brave. I wasn't even gonna ask you to do that.
What I'm sure will happen is that I see why you don't like it and think it's bad. But
Yeah.
what is a slight thing that is in the back of my mind that could happen is like, what if I liked it? That would be controversial.
That would be very funny. And actually, that was the thought that happened in my head last week when we were talking about Solo with Jack, because we were on the call first and then he joined. And when we were talking, as he joined in, I was going to say this and I didn't get the chance because he joined in, but I was like, the worst thing that could happen tonight is if he actually really likes Solo. And then he joined the call and really liked Solo.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
funny. Yeah,
that was pretty
yeah.
funny. And we
It's good to have
prevailed.
a little friendly debate though.
It
And
felt
we
really
did win.
good. I loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really like him. He's fun.
Yeah.
All right. I have to go because I have to go get to a dinner. And I said that I would bring dessert and a salad. And so I have to go buy those first because I was going to
Nice.
make them, but then I didn't. Instead, I ran
Mm.
out of time because I was playing Fallout this afternoon.
I hate it when that happens.
I
But
know,
there's nothing
so
you can do. It's
terrible.
totally out of your control.
No,
So,
much like the characters in this story, my circumstances just happened to me. I have no control over them.
yeah, exactly. You're like Juliet. That's her name. Claire Danes' character.
Oh,
It's Juliet.
Romeo and Juliet. That's it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all coming together. Tonight, I actually might watch Romeo and Juliet just as like a sweet little dessert to really wrap this day up.
When you go to your friend's house, be like, I brought a salad and for dessert, Romeo and Juliet.